Alright everyone, this is a requested video actually. We start out today talking about anxiety and how to cope with it, and it comes in some different forms, so you got to keep that in mind. The coping mechanism that you use might differ from situation to situation. I'll give an anecdote first, and remember this is the no black pill zone. Everything's fine, don't worry about it too much. I struggled with anxiety, severe anxiety actually, after my overdose on spice. If I was ever in a social situation, I could get like hyper-focused on the noise around me, and it would start to like blend together and put me into a weird like dazed state, and I would sweat and I would have like, cold flashes and stuff like that. And multiple times I had to like drop what I was doing and leave like a store because for some random reason I would get triggered back into that panic mode like when I was overdosing, and it was very difficult for a while. What I felt helped the most, and the derealization and anhedonia that I had slowly ebbed away over the course of several years. Even a couple years later, I would still have panic attacks. The best thing that I found was just mentally reminding yourself that it will pass, that it's a biochemical response. It's a very physical thing. It's not even entirely mental. It's a physical response to stimuli, that it does pass. And for social situations, of course, a little bit easier because your anxiety could be triggered by something that's beyond your control, for example. But it can also be you can also have controlled situations or controllable situations in which that would be triggered. For instance, specifically you're in a store around other people. Well, you can elect to leave the store. The worst part was usually for some reason in stores, it was usually when I was waiting in line. I don't know exactly why. And so once you're in line, it's like, you don't really want to get up and leave. And so I would just have to muddle through it. Calming tea can help. Chamomile, things of that nature. I would say another way to help to fight anxiety, beyond letting yourself know, okay, and I'm having a panic attack right now, there's nothing really actually wrong. Another thing is to focus on something. That is, sort of drown out your surroundings. This is most applicable to social anxiety, dislike of crowds or certain noises. Focus on something. It could be in your head, so you literally count in your head or something like that. Or you try to think about something else, distracting your biochemical response, really. Or it can be something tangible around you. One thing that I oddly found that helped was to just, like you're in line at the store, grab something that you've decided to buy, it's in the grocery cart or whatever, and look at the label and start reading the label and sort of tune out the things around you that are causing hyperstimulation. That's, again, most applicable to that kind of anxiety. Some people have more just anxiety in general, so they tend to be an anxious person, jumpy, or something like that. Again, giving an anecdote, I've always had anxiety. I've always been a little bit on the high-strung side. I can be very relaxed and chill, and I generally will be perceived that way. I've had people say, oh my god, it's basically Zen. It's like, if you were in my mind, you wouldn't necessarily think that the case. Because my mind fires a mile a minute. I'm constantly hyper-thinking about things. This is both a degree of why I'm successful, because my mind works quickly and I have all of those various interests and I sort of think in a non-linear fashion, but it can cause anxiety, especially through insomnia. And that would be another piece of advice. Oftentimes, a person who has some sort of anxiety disorder is also going to be given over to having poor sleep patterns. You might have to modify your lifestyle. It's surprising how much you can suppress the symptoms of anxiety simply by being well-rested. When you get that well-rested bonus, it really does help. And it's a perpetual problem for me. So I can't necessarily give great advice on that. My best advice is chamomile tea. Most people, it hits them like a freight train and knocks them out pretty quick. I tend to need an extremely high amount of it, and I build tolerance to it very quickly. So for me, in insomnia land, that's only a short-term cure that works once in a while. I can use it maybe every other week or so, and if I use it more often than that, it really doesn't do anything for me anymore, unless I want to take all 20 tea bags in the box and pile them into a cup together until it looks like I'm making some sort of weird liquor as opposed to tea. It has to be brutally overpowered. I can't wait, by the way. The chamomile plants outside flowering. Another thing, distracting yourself related, is building a hobby. Yes. Whether it's outside, you might be a student, you might have to work and stuff like that. Okay, you have to get through the day. In your off time, though, one really great way to defeat anxiety is to limit the number of things that can make you anxious. So you might have social anxiety. Well, your hobby is probably going to be something that you do on your own. It's going to be quiet. Maybe you start reading a lot. Maybe you do gardening. Gardening, highly recommended. When I'm in my garden, my stress level drops to 0 unless somebody antagonizes me. By the way, it hits twice as hard if somebody distracts me when I'm trying to relax. It's like, okay, I'll be very short with people in those situations. If your hobby is also productive, that is, it's something that can build moolah, well, everyone has less anxiety when they know that their bills are paid up. So there's a fringe benefit that goes even beyond that. Build your little garden, make YouTube videos about it. You can get paid for that. Or simply lower the price of your produce. Well, any marginal step in the right direction fiscally right now, most of the population could use such advice. It's not easy dealing with anxiety, but it is doable. Like, I have stage fright. Again, I mean, if somebody comes up to me on the street and says, "Oh, hi, Sticks," or something, I'll shake their hand and, talk to them and stuff. That doesn't make me anxious. But the idea of getting on a stage and talking to a crowd of 2 or more people is actually terrifying to me, which is really funny considering the line of work that I decided to get into involves me talking to tens or hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis. It's a little bit different because I'm talking to a computer screen right now, basically talking to myself. Maybe that's a sign of mental illness. Maybe all of us YouTubers are a little bit wonky. I think we probably are. It's not easy, but it is capable. You are capable of doing it. Anhedonia ties into it as well. One of the biggest sources of anxiety post-OD for me was the lack of ability to feel physically or mentally happy. Like, I could feel content. I could, if I took a hot shower, that would feel nice, but the brain wasn't making the connections the same way that it did. It caused me anxiety because I thought, what if I never really feel truly happy again? What if I'm never really able to have one of those deep belly laughs because something is just off the wall hilarious to me? What if I could never feel physical, tactile pleasure in quite the same way that I did before? And what I did was, again, I talked to myself in my brain and said, it'll pass. Look, today you didn't feel crushing depression today. Well, that shows that you're capable of going a day without feeling crushing depression. It's going away. It will reverse itself in the end. It's not a permanent thing. And even if there was a possibility that it would be permanent, at the time that reduced the anxiety and helped. You have to be your own therapist. Another thing, you can reach out to friends and family. Of course, friends and family may not know that you have anxiety. They might be triggering you and not even realize it. Now, you got to be open and communicate with people too, potentially. So those are some suggestions. I think the best suggestion is to distract yourself. After a while, it sort of peters itself out. Once you find your happy place, you can always resort to it. And you also have to do one final thing. Understand that everyone has anxiety, depression, all of these things in their life. Everyone has a bad day. Everyone gets into a fight. Everyone feels scared or something like that. You just maybe are more inclined towards that than other people. In the end, though, you will muddle through it, you'll be fine, and by telling yourself that, it tends to help. And again, find your happy place, find your zone, do whatever you need to do. And don't worry, by the way, too much about how other people perceive you. Sometimes that can be a source of anxiety. Stop caring so much about others' opinions, and life becomes a lot easier. That's about all. Peace out.